All right, everybody. Welcome. Nate Hagerty here, CEO of Tax Pro Marketer. We are ready to rock and roll on how to build a 2023 ready online marketing machine. And we have a lot to go through today. This is a version of this presentation Christian and I have been doing for some time. I have been doing a version of this presentation, golly, since 2009 or so. I've been doing webinars since 2004. They used to be called teleseminars back when I started doing them. But anyway, we have a lot to go through, so enough chit. You guys know me probably. You know my story. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on there. Christian, you also probably know. He's our vice president here at Tax Pro Marketer. He's been with us for 7 or 8 years now. He's amazing, and he has a strong leadership gift and makes everybody on the team's job and life work better, and is really in the trenches with our clients on a day-to-day basis. That is our team. There's 20 of us here at Tax Pro Marketer. We're actually hiring, so there's more to come. We hit the Inc. 5000 list this year. Pretty fun accomplishment after 15 years in business to reach that point. I've got a whole blog post on what we attribute that to, because it might not be what you think. So check that out on our website if you're curious about that. That's a picture of my family. I always throw them up there just so you know that I'm not some disembodied business dude on these webinars, but like all of you, I've got a lot on my plate. I'm a whole person, not just sort of this business automaton, online marketing guru dude. As you can see, some of my kids don't quite look like me. That's a story for another day. A lot of you probably know it. We have 4 that we adopted, and then after 13 plus years of marriage and infertility, we started conceiving children. And so there we go. Now I have 7. Christian has got a new baby number 3. He's an amazing father. All right, enough of that. Want you to know this. We are not going to be able to cover all the material on these slides. I said the same thing a couple weeks ago when we went through our building an online marketing plan workshop. Today is also the case. We're not going to be able to cover it all. We're going to get you the slides in a follow-up so you'll be able to study those. But what's different from today versus a couple weeks ago is we're going to do kind of the overall kind of building block online marketing material for your practice moving into 2023. And there's some things that have changed. There's some things that have evolved. There's things that you need to know. The very good news for you is that if you can master just a few things in the areas that we're going to talk about today, and we're going to go around the wheel, so to speak, in our digital dominance methodology, which is what we do here at Tax Pro Marketer. And if you can master like 2 or 3 key concepts in these areas, you will have a 2023 ready online marketing machine, guaranteed. The reason why most people don't is they don't actually do the little things for each of these areas, and each of them work together. You can't just have an awesome looking website. You've got to have a plan to get people to the website. And then once you have them to the website, you've got to have a follow-up system, and it goes on and on and on. And we'll talk about it. Now, we've been doing this for quite some time, and I do want to sort of rip quickly through some prefatory concepts to make sure that you and we're all on the same page. Before I do, let me just also, again, in the housekeeping, there is a link there that I cannot tell you, or for the sake of the recording, it's in there. I would recommend you open up that link, and there will be check words for your CPE. The other thing is, if you have a question for me and Christian, put it in the Q&A. And if you just want to say like cool things, compliments like, Christian, you're so handsome, which he gets all the time. Or even better, Nate, you're handsome, which I don't get very often. That would be great. Those are just suggestions.
Just options.
Crickets in the chat. Okay, moving on. Anyway, so basic assumptions. We're assuming as we go through this material that you know that you need more than a website. You know you need more than a handsome website. In fact, it's kind of a basic requirement now that you would have a nice looking website. We can throw that link in the chat again. Thank you. There it is. Because there's so much more to online marketing now than just having a great website. There is, all the different other, like the Google Business Profile, social media, email, SEO, traffic, all the secondary listings, video, all the different components of an online marketing footprint. The modern prospect is bouncing all over the place and isn't just going to websites. Back in the 2000s, like when blogs, remember, were like the thing, and becoming like a mommy blogger was like a path to wealth and influence and fame. Websites, and everything else was sort of secondary. Now, a website is a part of a broader whole. And as such, with not just your website, but every one of your kind of online properties in general, we're assuming that you understand that you require a conversion orientation for all of these things. Now, back in the day, back when we first started teaching in these topics in the 2000s, this was not the norm, where people took the branding approach to online marketing. It's been going long enough. The internet has evolved. The online spacing has evolved such that we all kind of get that the purpose of a website and the purpose of every one of your online properties is to move the relationship along a spectrum, to get the visitor, the person that's on that property, to make a little micro commitment and convert to the next stage. And so your website, your Google business profile, your social media platforms, all of them, the design and the purpose of them should be oriented towards conversion. They are relationship tools. They are not just there for having a nice looking piece of collateral up there and having a glorified business card out there online. Most people get that now. So we're not going to spend a lot of time on that. Another thing that I think most people understand, especially in our world, because we've been teaching on this long enough, and I think you're seeing the evolution of the online spaces continue to highlight this, that email marketing is actually your hidden weapon. And this is especially the case for those of us here in our industry, the accounting and tax world, service professionals in general. This is the case because email is, I'm going to make an assertion here, and it doesn't really even matter why my assertion is the way that it is, because the data tells us that email marketing is more and more powerful in 2022 and moving into the next year. My assertion is that it's because this is the best, most distraction-free medium to communicate a message and build relationships. That's my opinion. But my opinion doesn't matter for squat, though it is an informed opinion because I'm a pro, been doing this thing for almost 20 years now. That said, the data is telling us that as well. So email marketing is your hidden weapon. That is even more the case now than it was even 5 or 6 years ago when everybody thought that social media would take over. That's not the case anymore. Email is actually more powerful than it has ever been. The other thing that we also understand, and the reason why we keep doing different iterations of this presentation and continue to teach in our space, is that tactics really are constantly changing. One of the big things right now is actually scaling those things that cannot be scaled. And what I mean by that is a few years ago, like automation was everything, like building this automated system on the back end that like when people would click on a link, they would take into a different kind of email environment. And like you'd build this email marketing machine. Now, everything is driving towards things that quote unquote can't scale, like the conversation on the phone or the conversation, one-on-one conversation, and figuring out ways to make that like workable within your practice is a really important thing. So that's one example of how tactics are changing. It's no longer about just automation and AI. People are seeing through that stuff. It's getting old. You've got to have a strategy to move people into kind of the non-scalable things. So that's something I've actually never said on a webinar before, but it's one example of how tactics really are constantly changing in online marketing. Here's something that hasn't changed and will not change. And that is that marketing at its core, and again, this is another assumption that I'm making that we're not going to spend a lot of time on, but the marketing at its core is a relationship journey. We spoke a lot about that in the previous webinar. You can go back into our archives on our member site and check that out if you're intrigued by this concept, but that the whole game is moving a relationship from like they don't know who you are to warm and engaging with you to hot and client, and then even beyond that. So it's a relationship journey, just like it is in the real world. And I'll kind of give you what that relationship journey looks like in a minute. Here's another basic assumption that we haven't talked about on one of these webinars in a while as well. And this is kind of new, especially in our industry, is that you want to screen for the right clients. This is not something that a lot of people are talking about, but it's so critical in our world where a lot of you are facing like a flood of interest. And so the marketing challenge becomes less about getting somebody with a pulse, to knock on your virtual door or give you a call or shoot you an email or like go to your office and want to be a client. It's actually figuring out a way to screen them out so you're only working with the right kinds of clients. Now that requires clarity about who that client is, and I'll have some words about that in a moment. I want you guys to know, as we like to do, we will offer you guys a free tool that's going to help you get the most out of any of your online marketing efforts. In fact, let me put that in the, actually, Christian, since I'm just chatting, can you put the link to where they can get access to that tool, taxpromarketer.com/flow. There's an audit that we're going to look at all of your stuff, and I'll explain more about that in a minute. You can get access to that. So to the fundamentals though, back to the fundamentals, and I'm going to, again, move through this pretty fast. We spoke about this in detail on our previous webinar, but I will point you back to that. And we will have a few more future webinars in the month of December where we're going to do deeper dives on some of the topics that we're going to touch on, and we'll point those out when we get to those points. But one of the things we did a deep dive on was this: fundamental of marketing, market, message, and media, and understanding how those all play together. Your target market, i.e., who is your ideal client? It really matters. All the tactical things that we're going to talk about, all of the online marketing whiz bang awesome stuff that we're going to share with you about, does not really matter very much unless you have clarity about this. Who is your ideal client? And I'm talking about getting specific about demographic profile, their emotional makeup, the things they care about, the things that keep them up at night. Not just, I'm looking for cannabis practitioners. I'm looking for truckers. I'm looking for real estate agents. I'm looking for, divorced females over 50 in New York City. I mean, those are all demographic profiles. What actually matters is that you get into their mindset and you understand their language and you're able to speak that, because that's, again, kind of a fundamental, important keystone underneath all of these tactical things that we're going to go through as we build towards building this kind of online marketing machine. It's kind of what cool little graphic that we made that speaks to that. All right, time for CPE check word number 1. Okay, and that is machine. All right, machine. Let me put the link back in the chat. If you don't have that open already, go to that link that I just posted in the chat, and there should be a form to fill in machine. And all caps, no caps, caps, I don't think it really matters, but that is for your CPE. Machine. All righty. Oh, and Frank, don't put that in the chat. Don't put it in the chat. There's a link in the chat. In order for you to get that credit, you need to go to the link that I just posted in the chat, open that link, enter the word machine on that page. Got it? Got it? Good. All right. Back to some kind of big picture things before we dive in. I mentioned that online marketing relationship journey. Here's what it looks like before we kind of go into a little bit more detail on these things that we're going to talk about. The online marketing relationship journey is, we've broken it down into 4 key parts. Now, you'll see other teachers out there who are speaking to other online marketers. Well, they'll break it into 12 parts, and you can get that granular, and there's real value if you want to get pretty ninja to breaking these big picture stages into even more micro stages. That said, I'm a firm believer in, especially in our world, in what the old Renaissance philosopher Erasmus of Rotterdam said, that in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. And the very good news is our industry truly still is the land of the blind. And what that means is if you can open one eye and you're dealing with a lot of your practitioner colleagues who are still kind of groping in the dark about online marketing because there is a mass of confusion. There's so much information out there. There's gurus popping up left and right, giving you their new whiz-bang concepts. But if you can just do a few things well, and just a few things, you will be king or queen in your marketplace and your target market. And understanding this online marketing relationship journey is a key part of that. Okay. And that is the first stage, and is awareness. And what you do in this stage is different than you'll do in your next stage. And you need to know what stage of the journey that your prospective client is in order to understand what marketing strategies and tactics you should follow. So like SEO, which we're about to talk about, local listings, etc., that's great for this awareness stage. It doesn't really matter for the conversion stage. It matters none. And it's actually not that big of a deal for the engagement stage. There's different things, media, tactics that you will do in each stage. Okay. It definitely doesn't really matter in the ascension stage. This is a purely awareness stage, i.e., getting your name in front of somebody and having them make a micro commitment to give you permission to start engaging with them. Because that second stage is actually also critically important, and it's one that a lot of people in many industries skip. And that is the dating stage. Like, moving this to the real world, that engagement stage is like when people are just getting to know you, and you need to build that relationship over time. And there's automated things you can do, there's non-automated things that you can do, but there's definitely stuff you need to put into place to make sure that that's happening, so you can like kind of sleep well at night knowing that those relationships are building without you having to do a lot of manual effort. That engagement stage, taking you out to coffee, going on dates. And then you can have permission to make the pitch, to like have the call to action for them to become, an engaged client in your practice. And then the ascension stage, that's like, getting married and having kids. Like, you want those clients to become better clients and refer clients just like them. Again, fundamentally understanding that all of them like are your ideal client. And we'll talk about how to screen for that as well. All right, so I mentioned this earlier. To claim a free online footprint audit for the first 20 people on this webinar, go to taxproleads.com and answer the few questions on there. And Christian, Becca, Ben, Noah, there's people on our team that are like talking to people every day. This is not my sales team. These are like Christian's like leading our team. He's working with clients. We can talk about what it looks like to have you use our services, but it's really intended to look at your online properties, do an audit of them, give you some recommendations, whether or not you use us. Great. Please do not like miss that opportunity, because it is an awesome tool. All right, Christian, I'm going to let you kind of take the con here as we move into the next stage of going to the tactical stuff. This is Christian's area of expertise. He actually came into us as an SEO expert. That was sort of his first kind of assignment within our agency world. Has been leading this team for years and years and tracking what's changing and what's really working. I will say that he is leading a webinar next week on this very topic. It's going to be a deep dive on these areas. And so this is one of the areas of our slides that we will go fairly fast through, and encourage you to look out for the email from us related to the deep dive webinar on this topic next week. All right.
Hey, that's helpful, Nate. And that is something I'm always, I think you and I both, it's like there's so much more we could say in these areas, but we do have, again, in this, kind of webinar series we're in right now, we will go much deeper into this specific topic next week, which is, again, part of me wants to just go full bore on that, but we've got all these areas of our online marketing machine and build out we want to cover today. But this whole area here has yet again just changed beneath our feet. Google just changed everything about how you manage your dashboard. They rolled out some new features. And if you talk with me or one of my team members, we'll show you some of the specifics for you, your market area, your competitive kind of analysis of people around you, opportunities, but it is stark.
Yeah, just to be clear, they just made this, what do they name this dashboard? It's something weird, right?
So there's no back-end dashboard anymore. It's all managed, if this makes sense. Like, look at this view right here, this slide. If I owned, let's say in that blue section, super accounting and tax services, if you can see that, top business in the map, I would manage it from this view. I would manage my profile from a Google search. It's really weird, and no one quite knows why they did it, but they're Google and they did it. And in the doing of the change, they also rolled out some new features that are also not obvious. And so when we talk about SEO, we're going to talk about on-site and off-site elements, but just know this off-site Google business profile, again, it just shifted. And when you see a profile, which I would love to show you. I'll show you yours if we do a chat, and I'll show you one of ours that we're managing. The level of levers and things you can pull with this, it's crazy to see a profile that's not optimized versus one that is, but let's save that for another day. So here's organic search, right? We're going to talk about ads. This is organic. This is unpaid. Nate showed you the map here, this green section with website links. What we're talking about in this first section, and again, we're going to be more brief than we will be next week. This is, how do I get Google to rank me in these sections? And we're going to start with the bottom up. We're going to start with this green section. We call it the organic search results. these are the website links. This has more to do with what you're doing on your site. That blue section we'll come back to has more to do with your Google business profile. But here is that slide you were just at, Nate's perfect. One forward, if you don't mind. This is not us. This is from a group called Moz Local. We're not going to go through all of these elements, but just to say, this is the data. This is the informed opinion of professional SEOs and groups. This is what you need to do to get ranked in that green section. And
this
so
is basically like a macro study. Sorry to interrupt. A macro study of like all of the different factors. Google doesn't actually like give you the paint by numbers, formula for ranking. So you have to, it all has to be seen by like all the data that's collected by all the third parties out there, like putting their heads together. How do you get ranked? And this is what we're seeing.
And it does change year to year, the factors, how important are each, but generally speaking, if you want to rank on page one of Google, and again, we're going to go ads, local map, and right now we're in the website area, that area beneath. The number one thing is on-page SEO elements. That's all I'm going to talk about from this slide, because this speaks to a problem that a lot of people have in our industry. Building a good-looking website has never been easier. You can do it. Someone can do it for you. Someone can do it for you pretty cheap. You can also overpay for a bad site. But generally speaking, a lot of people nowadays are becoming quite aware, Wix, Squarespace, blah, blah, blah. You could build a good site and be like
a nice looking site. Yeah.
Compliant, check the box, I have a site. And yet that element, the first element for ranking in this section is the on-page SEO elements, which definitely informs point number one here, which let's get rolling through this. Each page on your site, at a minimum, in connection with Google, should try and target one keyword. If you've ever heard of like H1 tags, your meta description, the SEO title of your page, if none of this means anything to you, that's okay. You can still glean some wisdom from just understanding that if you build a website on WordPress or on another platform that gives you some SEO functionality, you can actually go and design that page to rank for one thing. And this speaks to a macro thing within SEO. People don't just search for one thing to find you. Your clients don't speak your lingo. What they might search for to find you is vastly different on a case-by-case basis, right? So someone might type in CPA, someone might type in tax consulting or tax planning or bookkeeping, or, let's just use some examples from the last few years, help with my PPP loans, EIDL stuff, whatever, topical things, non-service related things. All of those should be keywords.
CARES Act, blah, blah.
Yeah. All of these keywords are ways that people try and find you, and your individual website pages should be oriented on targeting one keyword.
ERC sharks. No, sorry, they probably aren't Googling that. I'm just saying that.
Those are all like, again, things you can do if you know how to do it, which is again, kind of maybe there's some information gap here, and we'll go more deeply into this next week. But all to say, not all websites are created equal. And to this point, your service pages, your homepage, your about page, your blog page, those are all like, or let me exclude the blog page because I'm about to speak about that. Kind of your core service pages, your core home contact about page. Those should target service keywords, but then blogs are designed to let you write on topical things like CARES Act, like ERC, EIDL, PPP, whatever, anything niched for you. I do construction, companies, tax consulting, or anything that you're trying to target demographically. You want to, yes, Jenny in the chat, you want to target one keyword per page or one keyword per blog.
Yeah, a blog post functions as a page on your site when you've got it set up properly. Right. A lot of times we see websites where the blog is just sort of like, johnsmithcpa.com/blog, and there's just a bunch of articles, and it's just content, and it's long and it's nice, but it actually, if each blog post is not its own separate page, then you've got a problem, because it just becomes like this confusing mass of like this skyscraper long page. And it might not be terrible because it's content that the crawlers will still register for, but it won't give you the boost if each post has its own page. All right, go on.
No, that's helpful, Nate. And yeah, guys, this is Vanessa, great question. Your existing client. Yes, we are taking care of this for you, because that's our job, is to make sure that each page of your site and your blogs are oriented around the keywords for who you want to target. And I'm not going to pitch, the
Yeah,
crowd.
even so, we have 2 blog posts per week that we're putting on your page.
Yes. And those are, again, different topics. We've got different tracks of content. Nate will probably cover that in a little bit, but I'm so tempted to keep jumping down these rabbit holes. I'll come back to that. Okay, Nate, let's go to number 3. And again, we've got powder dry for next week. We're going to go deeper. If you want to go there with me, just come back. Engagement. SEO is, and let me just be clear, how Google ranks your site is somewhat controlled by how people engage on your actual site itself. How do they click? Do they scroll? Do they visit one page and then bounce right off? That's your bounce rate, if you've ever heard of a bounce rate. Do they bounce around? And so you want to build your site once someone's there to encourage clicks. Video helps with that. Pre-qualifying people helps with that. You're in the right place. Tell me what's wrong. Tell me your problem. Engagement is...
Yeah, we'll talk about that, the screening and pre-qualification later on. So carry on.
But let's keep moving, Nate. I think for SEO on the site, that's good. Again, slides will be sent to you. That was a question asked. We will send these out and we will go deeper into this next week. But if you want to go further into this, there's some more content on these slides that you can definitely come back to. But the net result of this is actions, right? So this is not like, hey, I've got a really great SEO site and why did I even spend money or time to do it? Well, you did it because people are now going to find you that couldn't find you. So this is dealing with what Nate said. Visibility at the top of your marketing funnel. If you want to think of it like a funnel, you just got to get found. You just got to be visible. You got to be competitive. And if you do this stuff, this is some data just to suggest Google will reward you. This is all organic. 1,700 phone calls in a 4-month time period from January 2022 to April 2022. And some of you are like terrified. I'm not saying that if you do this, you're going to get like thousands of phone calls in your first season with us, because ads is going to be immediate. Organic is a little bit slower. What we're talking about now is a process. It is playing the game that Google set up so that in the long run, you're sticky at the top of page 1 and you're not paying to be there. We're going to talk about...
Okay, hey, let me interrupt you, Christian. I'm seeing a lot of great questions that are going into the chat, like Clint, Tyrone. If you guys could put these into the Q&A, that would be helpful, because we are reserving some time at the end to go through these, because, Tyrone, a landing page, we can talk about that. That's actually awesome for use in ads and specific traffic kind of generation campaigns. Old blog posts, Reddit, deleting, like we can talk about all that stuff, but for the sake of time, we want to make sure that we're covering all of our keystone material so that we don't go down these rabbit holes, because I, in particular, Christian is not as bad as me at this, will start talking and suddenly 30 minutes later, we haven't gotten to half our slides. So if you could put that in, oh, there we go. Thank you. Put it in the Q&A. Thank you.
Okay, so let's shift area 2. We're going now to this blue section, all right? I have done my wonderful graphic design, cross out the green section. We're focused on...
Very pretty.
This is at the top of the page, right beneath the ad section. This is your Google business profile. So we talked about stuff to do on your site. Now, off your site. How do I rank in this blue section? Again, this graph looks similar, but these are actually different elements, which again, I'm not expecting you to remember what was on the last one, but if you download the slides and look at these are weighted differently. And the top thing is not on-page SEO elements. You actually see that as item number 6 on this list. It's still relevant. Ranking in the blue section is still somewhat tied to your site, but look at item number 1 and 2. Google My Business Elements, which the name is now Google Business Profile.
But most people know it by Google My Business still, so.
Yes, everyone still kind of calls it Google My Business, but again, back to Google's weirdness. They have to change things that don't need to be changed just to be busy. Google Business Profile, Google My Business Elements, Google Reviews. These are organic factors for getting found by your leads. And again, I've got those highlighted on the left for the map section and on the right for that green box section, the website section. This matters in both areas. And again, you can see that SEO page elements is number 1 on the right, Google My Business on the left. We're going to focus on Google My Business, but these things are all intertwined. They're all intertwined and interconnected. But if you were to deal with one thing on this webinar, probably the most actionable thing, if you don't get our help and want to DIY it, this is the thing I think you could do.
Hey, Christian, does business.google.com still operate as the place to go, or is that changed now?
It takes you to the front end. It takes you to a Google search. So yes, business.google.com is where you would go if you have access to a profile or if you want to claim a profile. But then it shows you when you manage your profile, like you've just searched for your own business on Google on a search itself, if that makes sense. And
so it's a new confusing interface.
Yes, yes, the interface. Everyone is hacked about this, and we're rolling with it. And there's again some things they did that are really fun. We'll talk about next week, but let's go into the big.
So, yeah, if you go to business.google.com, you'll be able to tell, ideally, and Christian, correct me on this because it sounds like things have changed enough that I may be not accurate in this, but you should be able to tell that if you have control
Yes.
over your profile.
Yes. That is still
Right.
the case on the back end. Correct.
Yes. All right.
Let's keep
And
going.
that's important to know because a lot of people still don't even have claimed control over their profile.
Yeah.
And that manages like ranking factors for your website. These, as Christian already said. So this Google business profile is what dictates what's in that little box that shows up in organic results when people search you by name, and like on the mobile device or in a desktop when Google deems the keywords that are used to be localized. And most things in our industry, Google has deemed to have local results, like localized intent is what they call it. When those are the case, then they will serve up these maps results like every time. And those are the most powerful places that you can be found because they're at the top of the attention screen. So, all right, shut up, Nate.
No, that's great. Let's keep rolling. I think big 3 things for this area is next. Let's get past the data, more good data. Okay, like you just said, Nate, optimization comes once you get the profile, but you got to get the profile first. Let me say a few things about this. 1, if you are now working remotely from home, you can still do this. Totally fine. You don't have to list your home address. Totally fine. Google gets it. There's a way to do it. You still should have this profile. 2, never, ever, 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 and I know I can't hear you, but please say this to your computer screen, even though no one else can. I will never say that I target the whole United States on this profile. I will never do it. It is a glitch. They allow you when you say, hey, I don't have a physical address. I serve this market area. And clever us, we think, well, hey, Google, watch what I'm going to do. I target
More
the whole
potential
US.
clients, baby. 350 million people. Come on.
It'll break your page. And then I have to come in and fix it. I'm not kidding. I've done this for like a dozen people. Don't do it. And just trust me. So you want to be localized, right? Use this profile for localized purposes. And I get that a lot of you can serve people from outside your local area. Your local area is not your biggest thing. That's some of you, that's fine. We're playing the local game here. We can play the
The niche game, when you have a niche and that's like your focus, believe it or not, like they're still going to serve you up mostly in your local area. Now there's some SEO and advertising things that we can do to help you reach that national audience, especially if you can be very specific as possible, not just like dentists, like you need to be even more specific than that, but you're still going to like the results and the people that are going to find you are going to be oriented in your local market area.
Correct. Yes, that's what this profile is for local, businesses to get found. And so let's play that game. Let's not play the game that isn't set up. Let's not play chess when it's a checkers board, although I guess you actually probably could do that. Now let's optimize these profiles, right? Let's optimize them. I've got it. I've claimed it. I had a postcard come to my house and this profile is now on business.google.com. I can access it. Wonderful. Now what do I do? And this is what I'll go into more next week. I'll probably next week just share my screen and show you some real examples, or I'll put them in my slide deck. Hey, what does an optimized profile look like versus a non-optimized profile? It's crazy. It's so crazy. And it's not just crazy in terms of like the level of information that they'll list for you, but when you do these things, Google likes you better because you're doing the things they're asking you to do. So post
It's a
photos.
dramatic difference. And I'm sorry that I keep interrupting you, Christian. I vowed that I wouldn't, but I'm sorry.
No, you're good, man. No, we're all on the same page.
Yeah. It is a dramatic difference between optimized and non-optimized. And one thing I just wanted to highlight is talking about this is actually not like, I'll kind of be transparent. It's not in our business interest because this is something that like business owners can handle on their own. Now we will do it for you if you don't want to, but like a lot of marketing guru types don't like talking about this because this is one of the most powerful components, if not the most powerful component to your online marketing footprint. And it's something that Google makes kind of paint by numbers, this part. Now there's all kinds of other things that play into it, but this can be a real keystone to your online marketing, new client acquisition efforts, getting this nailed.
Yes.
And so at a minimum, talk to Christian and so he can walk you through how you can do it for yourself, or Ben or Becca or Noah on our team. Talk to them.
It's so dramatic.
It's so dramatic, and it can drive tons of actions and new client acquisition. So
yes. And hey, I've got some like factors here, like, hey, set up your category, set up your services. Our optimized pages, I'll just tell you, Google gives you this thing called products that you can now have on this Google business profile that can say, I do tax representation, accounting, bookkeeping. You can list the price, but we tend to not for our clients. But again, it's these little levers that make your profile look a lot more robust. And again, Google loves those signals. Everything about SEO is feeding the robot known as Google signals. Send them signals, play the game. And all of this is unto, if you want to grow, you absolutely can. There is not a single market in this country that we've entered, the biggest to the smallest, and some of the smallest are actually really competitive, that you can't get to the top of page one, because again, people in our industry kind of stink at doing this. Generally speaking, there's a ton of opportunity in your market. The people who are on page one now don't know how they got there. They don't know how to stay there. And we come in and just, again, like the one eye is open. We're doing things that no one else is doing. Google's going to reward you because, again, it's about signals. Advertising is different. Advertising is paying to be there. We'll get there in a minute, but I just want to encourage you guys, if you want to grow, it's not a mystery. You totally can. Items 2 and 3, let me be brief. Your profile around the internet matters to Google. Your website, your Google page, yeah, your Facebook page, your Yelp page, your Bing page, your Apple Maps page, etc. There's probably 60 to 70 relevant profiles in our industry. And here's what number 2 item is referencing. You should have what's called a canonical instance of your business around the internet. Or let's just say, format your business name, address, and phone number the same. If you have been around a while, it stands to reason you've probably changed your address, your business name, your phone number, your website, and that's just a penalty within Google if it's not consistent around the internet, right? That makes sense. Google's a robot. They're looking for consistency. Try and represent your business consistently around the internet. That is something we clean up for clients. There are tools that you can figure out how you look around the internet, but I just want to briefly name consistency around the internet on your non-website profiles. It does matter. Now, number 3, we've already kind of mentioned reviews. I want to stress this more next week. I want to say it in a way that communicates the importance of this without getting too deep into it. If you don't have a system to get reviews right now, you're missing out. Let me say it this way. I've actually had clients where I'm doing a call with them and they're like, hey, Christian, I'm not getting as many leads as I want. And it's like, okay, let's do some diagnostics. Let's look at what's happening. And 99 out of 100 times when I have that call, the main reason is they have 0 reviews. And I get a client, as in like our website strategy, what Nate and I have put together, what our whole team delivers in terms of production and build out. I can get someone on page 1 of Google without any reviews, but they won't get any calls because they're stacked next to competition that has reviews, right? It makes sense. You want to have some social proof and build some credibility.
Conversion.
That you know what the heck you're doing. That matters. And so this isn't the only thing, but in the absence of reviews, you're not going to get as many results as you'd like. And you might even rank on page 1. I've seen it happen. And when we fix it for these clients, well, all of a sudden they get a flood of calls and leads coming through. It's not rocket science again. Lots of slides on reviews, Nate, skipping past just for the sake of time. Please come back to that or we'll cover it next week. But here's the bottom of this. Nate, that last slide, just to drive the point home. If I'm an or I'm a prospect for one of you guys, and this is what I see, these are the results at the top of the page, I'm clearly going to probably call guy number 1 with 64 reviews, 4.7 stars. And here's the biggest thing. You guys already have happy clients. That's the hard part. You already have happy clients. The easy part is getting a review, or it's a heck of a lot easier than providing a good service. It's not like a 10 out of 10, you're going to have everyone leave you a review. Obviously, people get distracted and busy, but like you have happy clients. So let's have a process to make it easy to ask for, hey, can you talk about your experience with us on Google? You don't have to make it complicated, but it helps. Now, Nate, we're transitioning. Do we have a word to do, Nate?
Yeah, we do. We have a word, and the word is journey. Like the band and like the online marketing relationship journey. Journey. Can you sing a Journey song, Christian?
Don't stop.
Hey,
is that one?
good.
Did I do it?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure. Journey. So type that into, let me make sure I put the link back into the chat. Type that in there. Make sure you got the first one. I can't repeat them by kind of our CPE kind of license. I can't do that. So the second one is journey. All righty. let's move on to advertising. And the thing with ads, and again, we're doing a deeper dive on ads. So we're going to rip through this. You're going to get the slides. You can look at those. But I would encourage you in 2 weeks from now, Ben Grootman, our director of innovation, and Christian are kind of go through like a whole masterclass on ads and how to make those work. What's awesome about ads, well, I'll let you talk about it, Christian.
Well, Nate, just for the sake of time, what I'll probably do here, because we're going to use a lot of these slides in 2 weeks to go into ads specifically, and we'll bring in some more. But I want to just for this section, so that we can get people CPE and try and get them done close to on time, let me just conceptually talk about ads in terms of why you would consider doing them. And then let's say that in 2 weeks, we'll get more tactical.
We'll skip. Okay.
We'll go tactical. So like what we just talked about was organic. What we just talked about was, hey, if you want to be at the top of page one in that blue section that's now crossed out, in the green section that we talked about first, that's your Google page and your website. However, if it's, approaching the end of the year and you're like, I need new clients now, that's the first reason you would consider doing ads, is results in the short to midterm. Organic is not overnight. Anyone who ever tells you that you can get to organic page one, position one overnight is lying. And so ads for us first serves the crowd that says, I don't show up anywhere. I do want to grow. How can you help me? And how long does it take? Well, client, if we get everything built and then launch an ad campaign, you'll start getting clicks and calls immediately. That's how ads works. We're paying to be there. And so if you're sitting here on this webinar today saying, I love it, I love it, I love it, I want to do the organic, I want to get reviews, I want to get there, you're committing to a months-long process. How long it takes is variable. What you're doing, what market you're in terms of how quickly you ascend to the organic page, top positions. But ads, goodness, from Google to LinkedIn, Facebook ads, Bing ads, we've done TikTok ads. There are lots of different platforms where we can go and get you in front of your ideal client by paying to be there. I don't recommend Yelp. I'm not going to talk a lot about Yelp today. I'll do that in 2 weeks. Some of you still play the Yelp game, and that's okay.
We are speaking as former Yelp certified partners.
Yes, and I'm fine with Yelp reviews. I'm talking about ads on Yelp. I don't play that game. I don't recommend you play that game. I would encourage you to advertise almost anywhere else, but advertising serves speed. Some of our clients will advertise year round. And that serves, especially like the tax resolution space. If you're doing some type of advisory service space that's obviously not tied to a deadline, like bookkeeping is a great example, you can get results year round from doing ads. But here's the bigger thing. Once I get you organically ranking on, page one, well, what if I then have a placement in this red section that's highlighted on the screen before you? What if I'm in the ad and I'm in the map and I'm in that green section? Now I've got real estate in 3 different sections of a Google search page, and I look like the best option around. So it's giving more visibility to your business from another standpoint. But at the beginning, before we have that organic, this gets you one more quickly. And the reason you would do this is people are looking for you now. If you're ready to grow, if you have the staff capability, the time, the capacity to bring on new clients, this is the thing you want to do first. We haven't quite done this for our clients because we still allow you to opt out of doing ads, just to be clear. But like and Nate's almost to the point where we're like, we really want you to do ads almost as like a default when you sign up with us, if you're at all in the space of, I want to grow now. You don't have to. It is more money to do ads, but like it's that important to get results at the beginning of this build out of this online marketing machine. In the long run, you can turn off your ads and get thousands of phone calls or hundreds of phone calls. That is totally true. Some of our clients are there and don't need to advertise, but that is the concept of why ads would be something that'd be relevant to you. In 2 weeks, I'm going to get tactical into like content writing for the ads, keyword targeting, how to build a landing page. All of that's coming. So if you want to go there, 2 weeks, check back in, and we're going to go deeper into the tactics. And Nate is going to breeze through all these slides. They're going to be, hey, all the things we will get into. But I just wanted to name conceptually for you in your business, this is why you would consider doing ads. And then we'll come back to all these slides Nate is ripping through just for the sake of time in 2 weeks. All of these slides will be the ones we use, in addition to showing you some other data that we'll pull in from real clients we're serving right now. Because there's a lot here. This is its own discipline that's just massively, it's unique. It's on an island, right? This is ads in itself is a beat. And I will
highlight this page.
Please. Oh yeah, good. Perfect. Go ahead.
So if you are doing advertising is like stepping to the craps table in Vegas. Like the house always wins unless you kind of know what you're doing on the back end there. And so I would encourage you, I'll get you the copy of these slides, everybody, to just use this page with your existing provider. If you have somebody running ads for you, again, we can do this for you. I hope you'll let us do it for you. But if you don't, that's fine. Use this page and make sure that they're doing these things.
Thank you, Nate. That is a good page to highlight. If you're like doing it now and need something right now, download those slides, pull that slide up. And Nate, I think I'm kicking it back to you now.
Yeah. Please feel free to interrupt. Be kinder than I was to you.
No, you're
Please.
great.
I'm insecure and weak.
No, you're good.
All right. So we're going to move to lead follow-up. Okay, because we're going to going around that digital dominance methodology. All this stuff works together, and it's really important to have kind of a holistic perspective on your online marketing. And we're moving along the relationship journey now because now we're into engagement. So you've got traffic from, your organic SEO, your local listings. Maybe you went for kind of the quick wins with advertising or the national reach or real specific targeted keywords that you can do with ads, and you've got that on lock. What next? Well, that's why we have a lead follow-up. Somebody asked about funnels or like landing pages. This is like, that's a tool to be used in here, but what I'm really talking about is actually like what happens once somebody gives you that micro commitment, because your blog posts that people hit on because they typed in a keyword that matched your particular page. You should, on that page, have a survey or something, a lead magnet that gets like somebody to like move into that deeper relationship. So that's why when the websites that we're building now for the last like year and a half, we have really shifted everything towards beginning this question asking process on every page of the website. And we're moved away from download this awesome white paper, download this free report, here's this cool thing just to get the email address. We actually want to screen out clients now. We want to filter them so that we can follow up with the ones that we want to follow up with, and then get a little bit more data as we do. And so like this is an example of a homepage of one of the sites that we built, and you'll see tell me more about income tax strategy, business tax strategy, or maybe both. And there's more questions that go through. Resolution oriented client, like if you've got like a campaign or a site and that's like your main focus of your practice. There's a guy that built a 7-figure resolution practice, just like letting us handle it for him. We built this 7-figure practice for him. And again, it's just basic questions to start out. And then you get through it and then they can get to your calendar. So you've got to screen them first before you you can give everybody your calendar, but then you've got that data about the things that like, you're asking them about like the amount of back taxes, what do they owe? Do they have an in-house solution, et cetera? And that can help you and your team, if you have a team, to like make sure that you're following up with the ones that you want to follow up with. But of course, then there's the automated follow-up component. So you want to have a mixture of both. And for that, we want to have an intake sequence, which is an email sequence, which begins that relationship and asks questions. This is something that a lot of people still do not have in place, and it is so powerful when you do it right. A lot of people don't realize that you can do these things and not have it be like self-promotional carnival barker, like here's how awesome we are, here's how great I am, but it can actually be engaging and relational, and you can get people kind of more deeply connected to you. I will just kind of reveal, we use this same strategy at Tax Pro Marketer. Okay, and have for years, where like when you become a member of our website, you go to taxpromarketer.com. Most all of you are already on there, because if you got this email about the website, or about this webinar rather, then you are already a member and you've got access to our membership site, etc. But when you first joined, there was a sequence of emails that you got that kind of like you got to know us a little bit. And clearly, in some measure, it's worked because you're still here with us, okay? Whether or not you use our services, the point is, I've got like a relationship with you to a degree, right? Because we've had this conversational email relationship. The vast majority of you have never met me, have never even really gone too deep with us, like one-on-one, but you've been like kind of like in our world a little bit. So I'm just like opening the kimono a little bit, that the same reality can be for your practice. You can even do webinars once you've done this sort of thing for your email list. But It starts with having like a 3 to 6 email sequence. It goes out every few days. That is that first indoctrination conversation with your prospects. If you do it right, a lot of them will like kind of be ready to have a conversation after that series. Because again, email is the most powerful medium for this because it's the most distraction free. It's not a browser environment. It's got like one message. This is different than the tax tip newsletters. And we'll talk about Nurture here in a moment when we get to that. But this is relational, conversational emails written in the first person from you or whoever you want to be like the face of your practice to the email recipient. And again, the goal here is going after engagement. So you want to, like, once you capture that lead, you've got to have a system that sort of engages them and builds that relationship over time. Oh, Noah is joining us. Feel free to just mute your microphone, Noah, and he's going to be engaged in the chat as well. He's another one of our coaches here at Tax Pro Marketer. All right. Story, I'm not going to waste a lot of time talking about our stories. You can find those on our website. I want to get into email nurture. But before I do that, check word, CPE check word number 3, okay, of 4. There's one more coming. This one, I just took a little liberty on this one because
he's a homer.
Yeah, I grew up in the DC area and I'm a Commanders fan. And they're on a hot streak. They're 6-1 in the last 7 games, best record in the NFL. So I'm better than the Chiefs. Anyway, check word is Commanders, plural, Commanders. And I just put in the URL. I saw 1 or 2 people are having an issue. Like you got to wait until you have all of the check words to hit submit, by the way. Okay. So you're going to get an error, I think, unless you have all of the check words. Okay. So yeah, don't submit them until you've got them all. Okay. But third one is Commanders because they're awesome. And yeah.
What do you want to say?
Yeah. Go Commanders. Would you say go Commanders?
Go Washington football team.
Okay. All right. Oh, Tyrone is an Eagles fan.
Eagles!
Oh, how'd that last game work out for you, Tyrone?
Go Commando. There we go.
I'm just having fun. All right, moving in. I don't take it too serious. You can't take it too seriously if you're a Washington football team fan for the last 30 years. But I grew up and we won 3 Super Bowls when I was a child. So I'm just I've lived in Chiefs Kingdom and I'm okay. That's not why you guys are here. You don't care. Most of you don't even anyway, shut up, Nate. All right, email nurture. What makes email marketing work? I've highlighted this a little bit when I talked about the lead follow-up, but what really makes email work is that it's a relational medium. This is so important that a lot of people still don't understand. And they approach email marketing like it is like a memo sending from Mount Olympus to like brand themselves to their thing. You know what? Because of the time, because of the check word, let me just put the check word number 4 up there, okay? So if you do have to go, then I'll do check word number 4. And that is, let me just make sure that I get this correct because it's on my slide here for check word number 4. That is leads. Because again, if you want more leads, you go to taxproleads.com and answer the questions, talk to our people, and you'll get more leads. All right. But I'm going to go back to the material. Yeah, USMNT. I love that. All right. Back to email marketing and what makes it work. But we'll repeat that check word when it's in context here because I have about a few more sessions to get through here because we're going to the bottom of the hour. We're going to go till 11:30 Central, 12:30 Eastern here. But if you need to pop out, I just gave you the 4th check word because we have done an hour. So I want to honor your time. Feel free. But if you want to learn this stuff and actually grow your practice, then hang with us. And we're going to do some Q&A here as well towards the end once we get through our material. All right. So relational email. Written in the first person, writing it like you would write an email to somebody like off the cuff. Now you want to go into a little bit more detail, of course, and do something authoritative and give them real value. Then I can't repeat the check words, like that's just part of our agreement with CPE kind of organization, but you can put them into the URL. I just put it in the chat. So back to what I was saying, you want to give real value and not just like agitation and like, hey, don't you know taxes are really hard and, we are awesome at them. You probably stink at them, and I see when people try to do email marketing like they see a lot of gurus and internet marketers do, it's just agitation. And there's some lists that I'm seated on that because I've been, in the industry for so long where I see people kind of get coached by like these internet marketing gurus and they start getting real carnival barkery in email. And that is not the approach. That's falling off the ditch on the other end. On the first end is just like the very generic content, like memo from on high. It's like 6 articles, tax tips, newsletters. People know that you've contracted with some marketing outfit to generate that content for you, and it doesn't do anything to move the relationship forward. And that's what we want email to actually accomplish, is move the relationship forward, not like the other stuff. Okay, not just spit out generic content, but give real value. And then, of course, be timely about that. And so what that means is we're actually, the next week's article we're writing for our clients is just like end of year tax moves, right? So that's an easy one. But then there's like when the CARES Act passed, we did a whole couple weeks on what that mattered, and the American Rescue Plan and all the different tax code changes over the last couple of years. When the PPP and the IDL were just being rolled out, we did a whole deep dive on that on behalf of clients so that it made you as the CPA look amazing to your clients. And again, all written in the first person, like you wrote it, like you actually cared about it, not that you contracted with some marketing company to spit out content or hired a writer to just send out to your list. What makes email marketing work and actually nurture those relationships over time, because by the way, a lot of your leads that you capture, the conversions that you make, they may not be ready to act like right away for whatever reason. Maybe they're not quite ready to switch providers, or maybe they're just sort of like slow movers and kind of procrastinators, and they like have the great intention and they just don't want to do it until like months later. That's why you need to be in front of them, but they could be an amazing client once they pull the trigger and, want to work with you. Okay. So talk about timely things that are happening like now. When it's political stuff involved, I really encourage you to like not be too strident. Like, please, I urge you in this environment, do not be, like lefty or righty or whatever it is you might be, like just careful, okay? What I always try to pull off and what we do on behalf of our clients, what I advise people is kind of a stance of bemused neutrality. Because we're all affected by the decisions of these Congress critters. And so we need to like adjust to it. We all have a common enemy here, and that's amazing. The IRS and regulatory bloat is a common enemy for all your clients, because your positioning is you are standing in the gap. You are their port in the storm. You get to be the person who makes their life work and deals with all the mess that they don't have to like worry about. Like, that's the positioning. And so that's amazing, because then you can like kind of be that like friend by their side to walk them through the junk of the regulatory environment that we all deal with, okay? And then do it consistently. And what I mean by consistently is actually weekly, at least. We actually we have different tracks of emails that we write on behalf of our clients, like different content streams. Like we have one that's just for family and 1040 oriented clients, high net worth and kind of like regulars. We also have small business owner clients, and we have an advisory track as well that doesn't really talk about taxes per se, but more about CFO services and kind of that advisory focus that some of our clients really want to focus in on, and they don't want to deal with any tax compliance work. We also have resolution content that has its own specific flavor and different calls to action. But the idea is to be like on a weekly basis in front of your prospects and your clients, because by the way, your existing clients that you've already got an engagement letter with, and maybe you want to raise your fees on this coming busy season, like it's going to be a lot easier to do that and to get referrals, to cross-sell them into different packages. Maybe you want to move to like a retainer model or value-based pricing. All of that works better when you nurture the relationship over email. Believe me. Okay, believe me now or believe me later. As Arnold used to say, what was that? Hear me now, believe me later. Somebody, there was something. No, it was the Dana Carvey Saturday Night Live skit, like we're here to pump you up. I'm actually wearing a sweatshirt that looks like that. They said something like that. Maybe somebody can remember and put it in the chat. Anyway, weird things that come through my brain. All right, let me give you some quick examples. In the slides, you'll be able to see a little bit about this. Like this is just an example. It's about 1.5 years old. It was actually before the 2020, gosh, it's 2 years old now. 2020 election, when RBG, Supreme Court Justice, had passed. And like we used that kind of current event thing that was happening. Now we didn't we're all kind of mourning the passage of RBG, but there's political chaos because of that, right? And so the world is in chaos. this is a great time to actually make sure that you have clarity about your goals. And that was the subject of this email. So notice it's not just about taxes per se. This is actually about making sure that your life is aligned with your financial goals. That's the sort of thing that you can talk about, and not just the 3 updates to the net operating loss carryover rules for 2023. Your clients don't give a rat's rear end about that stuff. They actually want somebody to take care of that for them. And so you have an opportunity to build that kind of advisory relationship, that, the trusted advisor cliche that goes around our industry actually happens when you speak about things that aren't just restricted to like specific tax code issues. And so like for business owners, we talk about the PPP forgiveness process, et cetera. Those are just examples. We do different things on a weekly basis, and I urge you to do that too. When you do this, what a lot of you probably don't realize that the email that you send on a broadcast basis is scored by email service providers based on like a variety of factors that influence deliverability. So this was a snapshot of our dashboard, because we do nurture and aren't just like doing calls to action and pitch emails where people are throwing it into spam, but you're giving real value. When you give just real value over email, you won't get marked as spam. And then when you're not marked as spam, you get into the inbox and people might reply back to the emails. That also affects your scoring. There's all kinds of things that affect your scoring, and nurture is a huge way to make your emails get into the inbox. Story. I'm not going to waste our time on, blowing our sunshine up our own rear ends. All right. Digital dominance methodology. We're going around the circle. Social media. Oh, man, I put out a sigh on this one because it's a necessary thing that you have a presence, especially when it comes to Facebook and LinkedIn. But I always hold my nose on it it's gotten worse and worse over the years. I will say this: you've got to have a daily presence there with content that is specific, and it should kind of mirror and model the kind of content I already spoke about related to email. I urge you not to waste a lot of time on there for yourself. Definitely as a consumer of this stuff, but even as a producer, this is one of the areas that you can easily have somebody handle on your behalf. So this is something that we do on behalf of all of our clients. We post every day. We handle all the replies. We only pull in our client when there's like a specific question that we can't necessarily navigate on their behalf. It is a dark hole of crazy. So like even in LinkedIn, definitely in Facebook, definitely in any other social media, people ask us about TikTok and Instagram and those things. I will say, we found some good success doing ads on TikTok, and we could talk about that. We've even found some good success doing LinkedIn ads. And we actually did a whole presentation, a webinar 2 weeks ago with an outside company that specializes in LinkedIn. LinkedIn does not allow third-party management of your profile. And so we can't handle that on your behalf. That it can be a decent place. But again, I don't recommend that you spend a lot of time on there unless you have a real clear strategy of what you're doing on LinkedIn specifically. Facebook, definitely don't spend a lot of time on there. You'll get sucked into cat videos and political arguments and, stupidity. So do not spend a lot of time on there, but you need to have a presence because people will find those profiles because they rank highly in search results. And if you don't have anything on there, it'll feel to them like you don't care. So definitely have stuff on there, okay? That's really all I'm going to say about social media. We're not going to do a deep dive on it. I'm exhausted by it, but you got to have something there. All right, so last kind of section of this kind of going around the digital dominance methodology is cross-selling and ascension. This is something a lot of people miss and something that we put into place for all of our clients, and you can put into place on your own as well. And that is having a thank you campaign. Do this now before April and May when you're exhausted, for those of you who do compliance work, okay? If you do like regular advisory work, think about what the right rhythm for this would be for a yearly rhythm of a thank you campaign. It might even be right now. When I say do this now, for those of you who do compliance, I mean set it up now so that you can run it in April, May, and June after the return work is done, maybe in October. If there's an extension, what have you, it might be then. But it's like an intake campaign, but it's a thank you campaign. And the first step of it should just be, hey, Mr. Jones, thank you for trusting us with the details of your financial life. Thank you. We know that it's a scary thing to be vulnerable and to show somebody else the nitty-gritty details of your finances. We take it very serious, and we just really appreciate you as a client. Boom. something to that effect. No requests, no calls to action, nothing, but just thank you. Be a real person. Like, not everything has to be marketing, people. Like, treat people with the respect of just saying thank you. Then a few days after that, then you can maybe ask them for something. Then that's when you ask for a review. That's when you can ask for a referral. That's when you can ask for like another, like you can put up your different services that might be available to your clients, like new value-based pricing, retainer model, higher level services. Make sure that they see that you also provide tax planning work or whatever it might be, whatever it is for your practice. There's so many different things that I can name. But the first step has to just be a warm thank you. But automate the following steps so that, in fact, your clients do find out that you have these other options of service that they can see. Because we just assume, because we're kind of all narcissistic about our businesses, we assume that everybody knows every detail about our menu of services. And the reality is they don't. People are actually caring about their stuff. You've got to kind of remind them. So automate that, make sure that happens automatically. Existing clients, we handle this for you. Make sure if you don't have that set up, like within our own dashboard, if you're an existing client paying attention to this, reach out to us, send an email to our team, and we'll get that, kind of point you to where that's all found for our kind of dashboard. Do this with consistency, make some offers, and amazing things will happen with your existing clients. Like, you're sitting on acres of diamonds. You can get a ton of referrals, it's your revenue. This will pave the way for raising fees when you like build in these thank you campaigns after the work is done. All right, summing it all up, the most ideal form of online marketing really is having a system, a machine that brings your leads through the marketing journey, like the relational journey, without you having to become a carnival barker, okay? That's the whole point of this thing, because there's ways to do it to get real aggressive out there. But I know from being in the industry for almost 20 years that you don't really want that. You don't want to become that kind of carnival barker, okay? You want to have like a solid, accelerating presence online that brings the right leads to your doorstep, okay? And then good things happen, right? Just like Ursula, more new clients from her machine this season than the old website produced in 10 years. So again, in order to like have us take a look at this and like we can point out the potholes that in your existing stuff, or point you the way to build it for yourself, whatever it might be, go to taxproleads.com. And Christian, if you could again put that link into the chat so people can go answer some questions, then you'll get on the calendar of Christian or Noah or Ben or Becca, people who are like talking through this stuff with the folks in our industry. The CPE check word, again, I am going to repeat this one. This is leads. Okay, that's the fourth check word, and that is the link that is above the one that Christian just posted. Just so you know what that audit report looks like, and then we'll dive into some questions that we can highlight. I know you've been typing out answers, Christian, but let's highlight some of those questions. And if you have more questions, by the way, of anything I've talked about, now's your time. Put it in the Q&A, and we can address those. We've got another 15 minutes that we've allocated. We don't have to take that whole time because we've given you the CPE stuff. But if you've got more, and if there's more engagement, we're happy to stick around and kind of do some coaching on the spot for anybody who wants it. Okay. But the audit report, like we'll do like a look at your UXO, your user experience, your SEO, your performance. Because by the way, that's actually a big part of SEO. Like load speed and the security of your site really does matter. And we can assess that for you. Your Google Analytics stuff, again, get access to that at taxproleads.com. You also shoot an email to Christian or me. Let me put my email in the chat as well. And, we'd be glad to engage with you over email as well. We're here for you guys. I mean, whether or not you're a paying client at our agency, like we have found like the best way that we can serve our community, it really it all accrues to our benefit, to everybody's benefit. When we're just here, we're not going to give you ever any kind of hard pitch on using our services. We'd love to come alongside you if the fit is right. But if not, we're just here to cheer you on and go build your empire, man. And, use these tactics that we've talked about today. One last quick housekeeping thing before we dive into the Q&A. Next week, Christian, and I think I'll be on this, or maybe Ben, I'm not sure. We'll be doing a deep dive on search engine optimization and local listings. And then the week following, Christian and Ben Grootman, who's our director of innovation, are going to do a deep dive on advertising. And if you do any kind of advertising, you'll want that. Oh, let me throw in the link to the slides as well while you kind of highlight some of those questions.
Yeah. Okay, so Nate's throwing the slide link in here. And I think, Nate, that also will be a downloadable thing from our members area too.
Yes.
So
This
it'll-
presentation will be posted in the members area as well.
yes. Okay.
And the slides.
Here's a question.
But I just put in a Dropbox link to the
Okay.
PDF of the slides in the chat. And by the way, if you could, before Christian dives in, look, got a few thank you. Like, would love just any quick feedback or like, has this been useful? Just put one in the chat or yes, or whatever you think about this. If this has been useful and helpful, whether or not you're kind of moving along with us, that's great. Okay, cool, awesome. Yeah, tell us how awesome. Oh no, that was you, Christian.
Sorry. Okay, this is a self-serving one to start, and then we'll go back to like some topical stuff, but just a good point of clarification. Does your marketing system work for individual tax clients or business tax clients or client accounting and
Oh
bookkeeping?
yeah, Asif wrote that. I remember.
Yep. And so my
Man.
answer to that is, just so everyone knows, Tax Pro Marketer, we have a variety of clients. We can serve different parts of this industry, and that does dictate kind of what you're trying to do, how we build your site, the content we use on your emails, your blogs, your social media, your website design. All of these things are influenced first by, hey, I'm bookkeeping focused, I'm tax focused, I'm tax representation focused. Whatever it may be, we don't have a one-size-fits-all model for our clients. Just to be clear, I'll leave it there. And then let's go to the next question. David, are reviews on Yelp as important as reviews on Google? No, thank goodness they're not. I hate the world that would be the case. I am not discouraging you from getting reviews on Yelp or Facebook. I think you should have a handful of reviews on those profiles in particular. In a perfect world, you got a couple on Yelp, a couple on Facebook, but most are on Google. Google is where you want to live. If you're not getting reviews anywhere, don't worry about Facebook or Yelp for now. Go to Google first. I'll explain more next week why that's my position. Let's go back up. Clint, is it a good idea to recycle old blogs, update, edit, repost, and then delete? Generally, yes. That is actually something that the SEO world would say, that's a good idea. In this industry, in this space, I would tend to say just writing new blogs is probably more doable than going back and editing old ones. And kind of what you're doing with editing old blog posts is getting into like a 201 or 301 class within the SEO space. And I would want the 101 class to have a really good box check. You are simply writing blogs versus going back and editing the 5 you've written in the past, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
More new content is better than editing old content if you don't have new content coming in too.
You need to be careful to not have it be duplicated content. Like, it can't be the identical stuff. Like, the bar isn't like super high for that. Like, you can kind of rewrite stuff that you've already written, especially if there have been like tax code and regulatory changes that surround the different topics that you might be talking about. That definitely warrants a repost and an update and kind of a refresher. But you'll want to create some velocity. And what I mean by that is, like, you'll want to signal to the engines that you're adding new content, not just going back and editing old content. So one of the real values of a blog is actually signaling to the search engines that you are like staying current and staying fresh, because they have part of their algorithm rewards those websites that aren't just stale and sitting there and somebody set it and forget it. So that's a lot of sites out there. The majority are published and then left alone. That's why you want to like poke your head above the madding crowd and put new stuff on there as much as possible.
I just saw a stat yesterday, Nate. 60% of the internet is duplicate content.
Yeah, interesting.
From Joy Hawkins, who's a gal. 60% of the internet is duplicate content, which is
that's not surprising.
Crazy. And probably a good chunk is from our industry, because almost everyone has a duplicate website. Almost.
Yeah, I mean, if you use these, I don't want to name names, but there are companies out there that people pay $70 a month, and they
or 700.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm just saying these quote unquote cheap site providers that they use the same content identically for 10,000 other practices around, and does you nothing. It
does you nothing. It is maybe somewhat better to have a site than not. Yes, I would agree with that. But again, if you're trying to grow, it's not helping you at all. Okay, last one. Well, if someone else puts in another question, that's fine too. Rosalie, what do you do? Nate, this is you. What do you do if they don't pass the qualification test? Let's assume that's from the site. What does the prompt say? Or maybe what should you do in terms of handling a lead that's not qualified?
So there's a couple options that you have in that instance. What I would do is actually like send them an email and say, hey, by the way, your situation does not actually match our client or our practice's services. And so here's my friend down the street who is perfect for your kind of situation. Go meet them. Another option is give them a link to TurboTax or some do-it-yourself option. You know, they like you are in control of the clients you take on. And especially in our world, in our industry, you've got to make sure that you recognize the power that you carry, that you don't have to just take that's why we really want to get clarity about your ideal target client so that we can help you kind of screen out the ones that you don't want to work with. And so we try to put questions like in that survey process that help you to understand some basics. Now, it might surprise you sometimes. And so it's good if you have the time to just get on the horn, but be prepared to say, you're not the right fit for our practice, but they might surprise you. And it might turn out that like they're at a stage in a journey, but you can tell that they're a rocket ship, you know, that's headed upward, and they could become a very valuable client, and their personality is great, and they're going to be easy to work with, right? A lot of times you don't want to work with people kind of in that early stage because they're naive about how to work with a pro. So you just want to like make sure that you do that. Lacey asks, what's your opinion of putting pricing on the website? I'm against it typically. It depends on kind of what you're trying to do though. There are instances where you want to put your pricing on the website as a signal to the kinds of clients that you want to work with, i.e. if you want to put really high pricing on your website and screen out the tire kickers who don't want to work with somebody who's, you know, if our returns started $1,000 a pop, putting language like that on your website will definitely select for a particular kind of client. Some clients out there won't bat an eye at that, you know. A lot of clients will. And so it just depends on what stage you're at. So it's hard to answer that specifically, Lacey, but generally speaking, I don't like it. Even when I was running the marketing for the big tax practice, that was more of a kind of middle income practice that was a lot like an H&R Block, we wouldn't put pricing very transparently. We charged by the form. This is early 2000s, okay? But even back then, when people would ask the pricing question, it's often because they don't know how to shop for services. And so it's like the price, that's the question that people will ask, you know, how much are your services? Well, what they're really saying is, I don't really know what I'm like doing I don't know what questions to ask. So that's a question that I can ask. And so have an answer, say, hey, our prices start at, you know, $500 a return, or whatever it is for you. But it just depends on your particular situation. You'll have to come in and we can have a look-see at your stuff and we'll get better clarity about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, ranges are fine on that. We can have a whole conversation about pricing. It's not necessarily the topic today, but I know this comes up.
We have had that conversation, right? We have, don't we have, oh my goodness, I'm blanking on her name. Michelle. Don't we have Michelle?
Michelle Weinstein. I have a podcast interview with the guy, Brandon Hall, and we talked about this a ton. We have a podcast that you can go listen to and find the one on Brandon Hall, who's built a $6 million accounting and tax practice, and he's pretty sharp. There's a variety of people out there that we've interviewed on this topic that I think could really help. And yeah, we care a lot about this stuff, but we're trying to zero in on the marketing stuff.
There you go. Yeah, lots of good resources just for you guys that are still here. Our members area, you can, if you're not a client, you can get there for free. You can listen to other presentations we've done. Our podcast, like Nate is mentioning, actually has a ton of content with really interesting folks in our industry, whether they're practitioners or other vendors, other people that are serving this space. There's a lot of content there that if you want to keep going on the deep dive, in some of these topics, I bet you we have a podcast on a topic that you're thinking about. So that's not the point of today, but definitely check out our members area podcast. There's lots of free resources for you. Yep. Oh, there it is. Nate put the podcast up. If you're still here and want to check it out.
And it's called, the episode with Brandon Hall that I like is called Thriving in Your Niche Market with Brandon Hall. And I'll put it there. I recommend it.
Perfect. And hey, we can keep going on those topics, Lacey or anyone else. Get an appointment with us. We can talk shop. We can talk other concepts. It's an okay outcome for us if you don't sign up. That's okay. Like we think we can help just about all of you, but we want to start with education, answering questions, and being a resource. So feel free. Don't feel intimidated by just getting an appointment. Tax Pro Leads. We'll be glad to chat and keep it going.
Yeah. And actually, I think I had it set up so that it should have opened that window automatically at the taxpromarketer.com/flow to attendees. So you should have been there. All right. All right. We'll be available after 3. Okay. Sweet. We'll give you a shout. All right, guys. Well, I think we'll leave it there. And this has been awesome engagement. Thank you guys for just your lots of great stuff in the chat and Q&A, and had a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to next week that when Christian dives pretty deep in the SEO world. If that's something you want to nerd out with, I recommend it. There's some little tweaks that everybody can do, whether or not you're an SEO nerd, that can really make a difference in your traffic and your results. And then 2 weeks from now on ads, and then we're going to have another one 3 weeks, a week before Thanksgiving week, or excuse me, Christmas week rather, where we're going to do kind of something a little different, kind of a catch-all conversation that we'll have then. So all for CPE, all part of this kind of get you ready for busy season thing. We're going to do something else in January, the beginning of January, and we'll rock and roll from there. All righty. Thanks, everybody.
See you guys.